Hi, and welcome to the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. I am your host, Kat Jepson, a canine nutritionist with an innate obsession with dogs and the natural ways in which we are driven to live because of them. So, let's get to it. Hi, and welcome to another episode of My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally. I am your host, Kat Jepson, and today I am joined by Roisin from Birmingham, and we are going to have a lovely chat about owning her Old English Bulldog Nina. Hi Roisin, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, good. No, we're happy for you to be here. So today, Roisin is going to be speaking to us about specific breed needs for Nina, her Old English Bulldog, getting creative and finding enjoyment with fresh foods. Okay, so first things first, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and Nina?
Okay, so I wanted a dog for the longest time growing up, and my dad was always like, not a chance, not having one. He never wanted to pick dog poo up. So as soon as I left home, I literally was in my first place for 3 months, and I was like, let's get a dog. So me and my partner were searching. I always say Nina found us because she was the last one left of the litter, and we just saw a picture of her and we were like, yeah,
No.
that's our dog. But obviously getting like an Old English Bulldog, it wasn't a breed that we had considered, but we were fortunate that one of my partner's friends had 2 bulldogs already, and through him he kind of gave us a little bit of a rundown on what to expect, a little bit about the breed. And yeah, so early on I was quite aware that okay, they're going to be a really loving dog, but there is a chance of problems, just to be aware of them and look out for them. And yeah, I've not looked back since she walked through the door.
Oh, how old is she now?
She's 2. She was 2 on January 1st.
Oh, and she's such a little cutie. I love bulldogs because they've just got those little chins, aren't they? They just stick the bottom chin out, don't they? It doesn't come out very far, but they're just and I absolutely love them. But I've got Boston Terriers, so I do love the squishies. Squishies are just my thing. And well, I think
they are lovely.
They're just so adorable. I absolutely love them. And it's such a shame that, they are unhealthy dogs, aren't they? The squished face dogs, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But they've got so much personality to make up for it, bless them.
They're just very human, aren't they? Their facial expressions and everything. I always look at Nina and I'm like, you are actually a human.
I know. And Boris especially, my Boston Terriers are like chalk and cheese, and Barney, he's really big and he's really muscular and he's really long, and he's got quite a long snout for a Boston Terrier. And he weighs 13 kilos, so he's quite big. But
yeah, that is quite big, isn't it, for a Boston Terrier?
Yeah, he is. He's a beast. And then Boris, he's real skinny mini, and he's 9 kilos when he's at a decent weight. And he's got a super flat face. You can't believe how small his nose is. It's that flat. And he just looks so miserable all the time. He just looks like he's got a constant sulk on. And the only time he genuinely looks happy is when he's playing with a toy, in the garden, or he's sniffing on a walk. Any other time, he just looks like he's pulling that like a big what you're looking at kind of face. It's so funny.
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. So what does your natural journey look like with Nina then? And how did it start for you?
So when she came to us, she was on kibble. And initially we were like, yeah, kibble. We hadn't really even learn or gone into that world of what other options were out there. And my nan and granddad had dogs growing up and they were always on kibble, so it was kind of okay, this is just the normal thing to do. And then obviously I started Nina's Instagram page, and you just get connected with other people. You see a lot of different things, and I was like, okay, other people are feeding fresh, feeding raw. There's obviously lots of options. And then obviously you start going to pet shops and you see more stuff. So you sort of just see things like while you're like going on that journey of like your dog growing up, you're doing more things, you're meeting more dog people. And then I sort of got thinking, I was like, how boring would it be to be eating the same stuff every single day? Like, we don't do it as humans. So like, why do we like do that for dogs? Like, I was just a bit like, there's got to be something like else that she can have, a bit more variety. And then obviously through Instagram, like I ended up just in this enrichment world, and I was seeing loads of people create so many stunning feeds, stunning like enrichments, and like all the reading about all the benefits to that. So I was like, okay, I want to sort of like start exploring what I can do like with Nina's diet. So it kind of started for me mostly like as an enrichment thing more than like adding nutritional value, but through creating all these different enrichments and like figuring out what she could and couldn't have, reading about like what the benefits were to certain things, like just out of like curiosity, then I started to like become interested in it. And then I decided to swap her from her kibble to a fresh food, just a slow cooked fresh food. And I then started adding like raw meaty bones into like her diet and stuff, and it just sort of like went from there really.
So it was sort of like a snowball effect. So it started off as something super simple, and then like by bit you were just kind of like going for it all at once. So how long was that process then for you? Like from the time you started doing the enrichment bits that you'd seen online, and then to kind of like change into a fresh food diet, what kind of timeline did that happen over? Like a month, or was it 12 months or?
Yeah, so I think it was about like a 6-month sort of period, because I was keen to swap over her food, but my partner was like, oh, it's just complicated, like she's a dog, like let's keep it simple. And like at the time I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of see where he's coming from. And I think that also helped me sort of like try to understand the benefits of it much more. So I could sort of like build a case to him and say, look, these are the benefits, let's do it. And obviously persuade him that like it was worth it.
Because we do have to build a case, don't we?
Yeah, sometimes, and like, cause he had dogs growing up as well, and they would just sort of have like kibble or like tinned wet food, and they would just then eat all like the scraps off like dinner plates and stuff, and he was like, and they were fine, they lived a great life. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not like a precious little bulldog that I've waited all my life for.
Oh, I know. And to be fair, like there's two points to that. My gran was exactly the same. Like my gran had a Jack Russell when I was a kid, and he used to have kibble, and she used to give him scraps every day what they had, and I'm talking like greasy sausages and bacon and basically everything, and she used to chop it all up into little pieces and mix it through with his biscuits and then give him it, and he lived to 19 years old. But
Crazy,
I mean, Jack Russells are like hardy breed way, aren't they? But like back then, nobody used to vaccinate the dog every single year. Nobody used to give them flea and worm treatments every year. Nobody used to kind of like, well, there's just so many more chemicals and toxins and things in the environment now which wreak havoc on the dog's immune system, that maybe they could have coped with kibble and greasy scraps because that was the only thing they had to kind of process and then get rid of. But in today's age, it's like everywhere you look, it's just toxins and chemicals, and and now there's stuff like that even in the dog food, because I'm talking like in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, and that, although it makes me cringe to say it, is like what, 30 years ago. So it's like loads has happened since then. I always think that 30 years ago was the 70s. I'm still kind of like stuck in that. Oh gosh, but no. Well, that's really fascinating, because I think enrichment, especially on Instagram, has been a massive thing in the past couple of years, hasn't it? I mean, we were heavily involved with that, with Perfect Nature and Puppy Chop's Pet Shop, and some of the like magnificent creations that you see from enrichment. And I think when you do try to kind of like paint pictures on licky mats and things like that, and you think, right, I need a green, what can I use for a green? So then you find a food substitute for it, because you're not going to be able to use like a green icing pen like you would do for a birthday cake. So then you like start looking into like blended spinach or spirulina with yogurt, and it kind of pushes you into 100%. That natural world. So no, but that's really good. So do you make Nina's food then?
No, so we have it delivered because we both work and our lifestyle. So it's just out of convenience. We have a fresh slow cooked food delivered to us, and it's just easy for us. Store it in the freezer. We give her that, and she is sensitive to chicken. So the food we feed, it's just beef, fish, and lamb. They're the 3 proteins, and it's just that with veg. I think that's something this year I want to do, is start like doing recipes and stuff myself, but it's not something that I think I'd do all the time. It would just be something maybe she has like 2-3 meals like a month that like I've prepared for her. Again, mostly just out of curiosity and enjoyment, and just adding like a bit of variety, maybe doing like venison or something, adding like a different meat for her, just to keep it varied.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. I mean, it is, I think, definitely one of the most common things that I experience working in the canine nutrition industry is that pet parents do have this massive anxiety about preparing meals for their dogs at home. And like, I genuinely think cooking is a lot more complicated than raw feeding in a way, because when you do a raw diet, you've got the bones and everything, which is sort of like a multivitamin in themselves. But then when you're cooking, you've got to find something to replace the raw meaty bone, because obviously you can't feed cooked bone, and that's when it starts to get a little bit more complicated. But I do think that it isn't that complicated once you've got your head around it. But when it is a new concept and you're talking about feeding your fur child, it's definitely a big step to take. But there are a lot of good freshly cooked diets that you can get delivered, so there's nothing wrong with that at all, and it is something that has to fit around your lifestyle. So you do the right thing, you do what's best for you, don't you?
I think that it is like the idea of fresh food and raw food, like it can be quite daunting at the beginning, but like I think once you get into like the flow of like how it can work around your lifestyle, and I think just being realistic, like you don't have to go into it like 110% all in one go. You can literally like 1 raw meal a week or 1 fresh meal a week, and just build up to a comfortable place that like works for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like if you wanted to, you could just carry on with your kibble for now until you were ready, and you could have like a bag of chicken wings in the freezer if your dog can have chicken, obviously. And then like when you're feeling like it, you might think, well, I'm just going to get a chicken wing out today and just see how it goes, just have a bit of a bash, and then there you go, you fed a chicken wing. And then I think as well, like it's the same with any habit. When you start to do it and you do it that little bit more, you find yourself making more time for it. It's like when you start going to the gym or something, like the first maybe 2 weeks of going to the gym is like, oh, what is this, but then when you've been going 2 weeks, you start to feel good, and then you're like, right, I'm going to go 3 days this week, because you like get pumped for it, don't you? And it's the same with that. Like when you start 100%. Getting confident, like, I'm feeding chicken next now 3 times a week, I think I might add a raw egg tomorrow, just something like that. It can just be as big or as little as you want. But no, definitely, I definitely agree with that. What were the kind of breed-specific needs that you stumbled upon when you were doing your research for Nina?
So allergies was like a big one. I think it is bulldogs in general. But we knew that she potentially would at like around 1 start to present different allergies to different things. And we were just sort of like prepared for like the signs of that. So she did, when she got to 1, started to lose like hair and get little like flaky, it was almost like dandruff in her fur. And at that time we were chemically giving her flea and worming products, which again, through just like researching and looking into like the natural side of like dog food, you end up going down that rabbit hole of like how you can naturally treat a lot of other things outside of like you know, typically what you think like your food can do, but there's lots of things you can obviously give them, and chemicals and stuff obviously aren't really great in some dogs. So she started to lose hair, and it was like dry, flaky dandruff kind of things. And I was just like, I'm going to stop giving her the flea and worming stuff. I just like, on the day I was like, she's not having it again. And then we did like an elimination diet with her while she was on kibble. And then we added proteins back in one at a time, and chicken, like literally when she has chicken, she gets all little hives all under her fur almost instantly. They settle down pretty quick. They do settle down fairly quick, but it is like instant. Like as soon as she was having a tiny bit of it, it was just all over her. So we obviously knew then like chicken is a no-go. And then I don't exactly know what cleared up the hair loss. I can't pinpoint it, because obviously I was changing over her diet from kibble to fresh, and I stopped giving her the flea and worming treatments. But within literally like 8 weeks, all her hair had come back, and since then, literally, her fur is fine.
Oh, well, that's really good news, because I think sometimes like allergies is such a tricky thing as well, and like some elimination diets work really well. Like with you could tell instantly that it was chicken that was a problem, but sometimes the symptoms can take ages to come, and they might even just be like a little nibble of the paw. So unless you really know what to look for, it can be really, really difficult. So although it is unfortunate that Nina has obviously got those allergies, then you know it's a great thing that you've managed to put a lid on it at such a
100%
rate.
And I think like food was the easy one for us to kind of figure out. She does also have environmental allergies, which is a whole different, like it's a different ball game. And obviously she's not that bad at all compared to like a lot of other bulldogs that I've seen. It is really, really mild with her, but like when we walk her, like her paws get quite red as soon as she's never really licked them or like been one to fuss at them, which makes me think she can like tolerate pain really well. But they do go really red when we walk her on like wet grass and stuff like that. But we just keep on top of it. We soak her paws in like a yeast shampoo and an anti-bac shampoo twice a week, and then that for us works really well. And she did have a few problems when she was younger with like ear infections, but again we're just using like an ear drop thing to clear the wax rather than any sort of steroids or chemicals, and just staying on top of like cleaning the ears and making sure there's no wax build up. She literally has no ear infections now.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, it's really good to see that you're so proactive with the care as well, because sometimes I think because lives get so busy, it's easy to kind of just think, oh, well, you know, we'll see how it goes, and maybe do try some kind of conventional treatments and then it appears like it's gone away. But management and, you know, like prevention really is cheaper than the cure, both in cost and in pain and suffering for your pet. So well done for that. That's amazing. It's really good to see. I mean, Barney has environmental allergies, and it is just an absolute nightmare, because we'll get to a point where we're doing really well with his diet and his gut's okay, and he's, you know, he's doing really well, and then something will happen outside, and sometimes it's just so hard to pinpoint what it is. I mean, there's too many variables outside, isn't there, to know for sure. And it's just so frustrating when you have got a dog that suffers like that. So, you know, I think it must be something to do with the squishies, honestly.
It is, yeah. It's a squishy thing, isn't it?
It's a squishy thing, definitely a squishy thing. Oh, wow. So how would you say that being on this natural journey with Nina has changed your life?
I think it makes you like look at your own diet a lot as well. And I think like my partner always used to say to me, like, you feed the dog better than you feed us. And I'm like, yeah, I know I do. But over time, you end up making better decisions like in your own diet. And like I now sort of like I take supplements that I would never have thought of taking before. Like I take like just a magnesium and like a green supplement and in like a smoothie every day. And that's something I don't think I would have even considered had I not gone through that journey with Nina. And I think it also makes you shop differently. You like I now find myself looking for like organic food rather than, just the general stuff. And it's just being conscious about like what you're buying, what you're putting in your body, and basically how it affects you. Like you see the effects a lot more in a dog, or with Nina we saw the effects like very quickly and it was very visible. But obviously those things also are happening to us. Like what we put into our bodies has an effect whether we see it now or 10 years down the line. Obviously with dogs it was a visual thing with Nina, so I was like, okay, we need to sort our own diets out now.
No, definitely 100%. I think it kind of, when you start researching as to why these things could be happening, or you see something on social media and it kind of sparks that interest and you think, I want to learn a little bit more about that. And then you start like putting the pieces of the puzzle together. You end up sort of like thinking, well, if this is happening to my dog and this is having an effect on my dog, what is it doing to me? And it does, it kind of pushes you into that, right, okay, so if I'm doing this for them, then surely I should be doing it for me too. And I think with you saying about the supplements, I mean, what would have been your reason to research those supplements if it weren't for Nina? Like there probably wouldn't be one, would there?
No, none at all. I would never have even like I just wouldn't have, because it's not something I was interested in before Nina came along.
Well, that's it. And I think sometimes as well, because we are so busy and distracted with life in general, like if we've got like a bit of a dodgy gut, or, if we're feeling a bit exhausted and tired, we don't kind of like want to know what's happening physically at a biological level to the body and what kind of foods can I eat to kind of counteract that and give me more energy. You just kind of think, oh, I'm just a bit tired, or, oh, it'll go away later, I'll be okay tomorrow. You just kind of brush it off. So it kind of sparks that fire inside to say, actually, why can't I have some spirulina with some yogurt, which, well, I mean, it's foul,
it's true.
You know what I mean?
We give our dog stuff to like prevent things happening. So like when you then apply that to your own life, it's like it works just as well. Like it's brilliant.
It does. It is. And the thing that annoys me and like makes me annoyed at myself is that it is so obvious that is what's going to happen. And until you do it, you don't know how obvious it is. And then you look back and you think, oh, I'm such an idiot. I should have been doing this years ago.
Yeah, it's true.
Like we've recently gone gluten-free. And it's not because we are intolerant to gluten as such. It's just because of the effects that gluten has on the body. And since we have been gluten-free, we've been gluten-free for a few months now. We do still eat gluten as a treat, like on a weekend. We'll have like a loaf of homemade bread or something like that. And it's, it's well worth it. We appreciate that loaf of bread. But like the effects that it has on like just your mental clarity and your digestion and just everything like that, when you've been doing it a few months, you just feel so much more, your body feels so much more like it works better, essentially. And until you do it, you won't know just how great it feels. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just like having a dog that like has dietary needs, it might feel a bit like, oh my God, like I can't just feed my dog like normal standard kibble. It's a blessing in disguise because you benefit from it so much personally as well.
Yeah, like it's more than just feeding your dog, isn't it? It's like it's learning about life and learning about health and things like that. So it definitely is. I think it is. I agree. It's a blessing in disguise. And the more kind of issues that you have to try and figure out and work around and sort of like come out on top, the more you learn because you have to put in more work to try and get there. So it's definitely a win-win situation. Although sometimes it can feel a little bit, you can feel a little bit kind of
I think
exhausted with it at times.
In the beginning it is very like daunting, and you know, like if you're a first time dog owner and you're like, oh my god, like what, like I don't know anything. But I think if you kind of like just go on a journey of like trying to learn something new about dog feeding and different, and just be open to like learning stuff and then making like an informed decision that works best for you from that.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can't say fairer than that though either, can you? And you can take it or leave it. You know, you could just take baby steps, like you say, and just see how you feel. And then see where you end up. Could be like you, feeding home cooked food, and doing all crazy things on licky mats.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So what would you say have been the downfalls or struggles of your journey so far?
I think for me, it's like obviously it started for me as like a creative thing, and I was making enrichment, and I think this sort of year I've sort of like promised myself that like I have to make sure that like everything I'm feeding Nina is like nutritionally good for her, not just doing things for the sake of it looking nice on Instagram, because you can get very like, I think, very carried away. Well, I can, because I'm like a creative, like by nature. I design for my job, so I think like I can get very caught up in like it has to look really really pretty, but then is she having too many treats, like too many biscuits, or like, and just being, I think, realistic with like the creativity and the nutritional value that she's getting, and just remembering that like the dog doesn't actually care how pretty it looks. Like that little bit of it is for me. Like that's why I like, and I'm very aware of that. Like Nina wouldn't care if it was all mashed up in a bowl, she'd eat it. So I think it's just sort of like always remembering that, because I've found it very easy to get carried away making something and then being like, there's probably way too much yogurt in that, like that's gonna, like it's noticing like that might upset her stomach. So like, and it's just sort of having that sort of lens on things. I think I've sort of said to myself, like, make sure you're asking yourself that question this year, don't get carried away.
No, I think that's a really good point, you know, because I think there are, even within the natural treat companies, there are still some dodgy stuff flying about. And you've got to be careful, like you say, you know, if you're giving them a big fat trachea, which is, you know, packed full of mince, then you have to count that trachea as part of their muscle meat intake for the day with a raw food diet. Whereas I think a lot of people probably just give a treat like that on top, but it's quite a substantial treat. Sometimes we do get carried away with Instagram mainly, I think, because it's always kind of like, oh, I want to make it, you know, look this, that, and the other. But like the one thing that I've stopped using is like the pates, because like it says that it's 100% meat, but when you try and make a pate yourself, have you ever tried to make a pate out of meat?
No,
it's like impossible to try. It's like to try and make a pate in that consistency. I mean, you can sort of like get something quite close, but to be as firm, you know, like that, I just can't quite figure out how it's done. So now I kind of like, I've stopped feeding the pates because I think, well, what have they actually done to this, or what is in it? You know, how have they processed this to make it react in that kind of way? And that's one of the things that I've kind of stopped using. And I know pate is really good for like spreading into licky mats, and you can cut little shapes out and make pretty pictures and things like that. But that, following on from your point, is one of the things that I've been aware of. It's been like, yeah, it's great to use for this kind of particular activity, but is it actually bringing any benefits to my dogs? Which I'm not 100%, you know, sure on that one. But that is definitely a great point. Like, but I do think, go on.
It's an important question to like ask yourself as well. Like, and I think obviously I've like dived quite deep into like trying to like do like calories and figure out like, you know, I've gone deep into it, so I won't even like, but that's because I'm interested in that. So I think it's like working out like the calorie, like, or just having a rough idea of like what calories are in certain treats. And like obviously because Nina's a bulldog, I don't want her to get too heavy, I want her to maintain the weight she's at. So it's like balancing like activity, and then like looking at like on days where she's not as active, feeding a little less, but still making sure she's getting enough energy. And it's just like there's so much if you are sort of interested like on a deeper level that you can dive into. And I really enjoy finding all that stuff out.
Yeah, definitely. You can take it as far as you want, and if it's anything, well, you do sound like you've fallen deep down the rabbit hole, but that's good because so have I. I think you could just keep going and going and going. There is no stopping, really, is there?
No.
So what would you say is the best thing about your natural journey with Nina, and based around like what you've learned?
I think like we've built a really good bond around food. She knows that like I am the person that prepares and gives her food. She's very aware of that. And there's something like in me, I'm like she knows how much I love doing that. Like I don't know what it is, but it's hard to explain. But we're very bonded, and I think like meal times is always like I always try and make it special. Like she'll always be in the kitchen when I'm preparing her food, and she's always just like watching me go back and forth from the fridge, and because I bake some like biscuits and stuff myself at home. So like whenever I'm like baking biscuits for her, like she's always involved, and it's like it's become like an activity for us, which I've loved. And then obviously just seeing all the like the benefits that like in the beginning when she was losing all her hair, how rewarding it was to like combat that by taking like conventional medicine out of it and like naturally like doing that, and then being able to like maintain that. And I think it's just nice like to be rewarded in such a visual way. Like she looks healthy and like she's got her hair back, and it does create like a bond. And you know, like cleaning her paws twice a week, cleaning her ears, it becomes a routine, like the same like if you had a kid, like you have like those things in your routine that like she now expects each week. We do it each week. We'll have a nice cuddle after, and it's just like time for me and her that's not always just like going out for a walk or playing. It's like other things, which I think I've really enjoyed doing that for her, and I think she enjoys it as well.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I love that. That's really great because that's the first time I've ever heard anybody describe it in such a way. And I know exactly what you mean. Like, I bet she can just purely feel the positive vibes and excitement just oozing out of you while you're preparing the food. And then every time you go to the fridge, she'll be like, oh, what's she going to get? What's she going to get? You know, what am I going to get today? I can almost see her just sitting there in anticipation. I can. It's great. And I do think, you know, because you probably being a creative person, obviously creativity is so good for the soul. And I imagine that when you're creating these meals, you get lost in that task. And that obviously restores a lot of your attention, and it gives your mind a break from chaos outside, you know, outside of work and things like that. And it really is a good enrichment activity for yourself as well, which is, you know, it's positive for Nina, and then it's positive for you because you get to express your creative flow while you're preparing the food for her. But no, that's really, I really do love that, because bonding it's part of your dog's life that they, you know, they just love you, their owner, don't they? They're just that you are the best thing about their life, and everything they do revolves around you. So the fact that, you know, you really work on that bond and incorporate that fresh food into it, it's absolutely magnificent. I love it. Well done for that.
Thank you.
It's great. So what would you say to any other pet parents who may be struggling on their natural journey at the moment?
I think like keeping it simple to start with, because there is so much information out there. And like anything, you should obviously read and get informed, get knowledge, but you have to, I think, apply it to what's realistic for you personally and your lifestyle. And like you don't have to do everything at once. It really can be like over the course of a year, you like build up different things. You like add a supplement, or you add something to boost their kibble, or you start giving like raw meaty bones as a treat instead of like a biscuit or a veggie chew. And just like small steps, I think, because it can feel daunting at the start when like like you almost feel like I don't know anything, but that is fine, and it is fine to just learn like one thing each week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like if anyone's listened to any of the other podcast episodes, you will know that I used to feed peperamis to Boris and Betty when I first got them. And like for me, you know, it always makes me sick as I'm saying it because I think, oh, you are. But I was the same. I had no clue at all. I didn't have any clue. I was feeding them peperamis thinking, what's wrong with that? I had no idea. And I think even now, sometimes having done all the research and, you know, the different educational aspects and things and being immersed into this rabbit hole of canine nutrition, you sometimes forget that there are still a lot of pet parents who actually don't know about feeding fresh food to dogs and still think that kibble is the way and it is the only way and that is how you should feed your dogs. And it's kind of, you know, for me, it's making sure that I recognize that there are still people out there who might not have a clue what I'm talking about, you know, and I'm saying, just put broccoli on the kibble 3 times a week. And they're like, what are we talking about? Why? You know, why are you doing that? So I think one of the things for me this year is I'm going to focus on how to kind of kickstart people's journeys into fresh feeding, because like you say, if you don't know anything, you really don't know anything. You really don't. And you think, right, I'm going to start adding fresh foods to my dog's bowl, but what do I put in? You know, you might think it's safe for your dog, or you might not know, and that puts people off because obviously they don't want to cause any harm. So one of the things that I'm going to focus on is kind of like bringing out the materials so that people can have that information to hand that they can sort of pick away at if they want to, or that they can dive straight into, because I do think supporting people in that journey is definitely going to be a crucial kind of deciding moment if they stay in that journey, or
I
if
think
they
that's
kind of
really
like give it
good.
up.
I think that's really like, it's good because it's hard, like there is so much out there, and I think when you find like a source that you can trust, it really does help like decision making. Like you say, there's so many foods that like, is it toxic or is it not toxic for dogs? And I think like the findings behind that, your normal average person isn't going to sit and read all the like reports on like how much was fed in the report that was told that something was, they're not gonna. So making like that information digestible and like building trust with people like as like a trusted source, I think like that's really helpful for people trying to transition into that fresh food and raw food world.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think sometimes, I mean, there is a particular way that I feed my dogs, and that is the way that I choose to feed, and that's my food philosophy. And I feed in the way that I do because that's what I want to do. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and everybody's entitled to have access to that information so that they can digest that information themselves and then make their own choice. So I think because of a lot of the sources that I've seen are either like, you know, it's this way or it's that way. And that you don't see a lot of no, you can actually do it this day if you want, and then do it that day if you want, or you know, if you want to feed leftovers to your dog, then that's fine, as long as you're obviously not overfeeding. Some people are just so no, don't do it, that I think that is why a lot of people are put off, and they just continue on this journey with processed foods. And we just want to get dogs onto fresh food. So, you know, if that's a few peas every now and then that's okay. So
that's it.
That's going to be a big thing for me this year, is to just kind of try and help people ease into it and let them know that, you know, we've got them.
No, I think that's great.
I'm looking forward to it, to be fair. I'm trying to like work on a million different projects at once, and because I'm just that kind of person, like I get too many ideas like quicker than what I can actually bring them to life. So I'm just kind of like chipping away in the background, but we'll get there. So do you have any plans for the future with your natural journey of fresh feeding journey?
Like I said earlier, I do want to start like cooking food at home for Nina. It's not something I think I will do like completely. I won't be home cooking every single meal. It's something I want to do maybe 2-3 times a month. again, just to sort of build my knowledge on like foods, building like recipes that are full of everything she needs. And then maybe later on in life, when I've saved loads of money and I can afford not to work, I might cook for her every single day.
Yeah,
But
fresh every day.
Yeah, but until then, like I think obviously there's loads of fresh food, slow cooked fresh food companies out there which do offer amazing meals, and that for us works really well. So I think my aim is just to get cooking from scratch at home for her and just adding, like, keeping the variety in her foods, like introducing things like venison, which she doesn't have on her fresh food at the moment, but she has like the air dried little training treats and she loves them. So like every bit of me is like, she'd love to have like a venison meal. I can already see her eating it now.
Yeah, and I'm not kidding. Just wait until you have that slow cooker going and she knows it's for her. I'm not joking. You'll want to cook all the time when you see how much she'll love it. Because I do. It's not very often that I give my boys cooked food, but every now and then I'll do them like a slow cooker pot just as a treat. As a treat, and they absolutely love it. Like they do love their raw food, but there's just something about all that cooked meat and all the juices that they just love it. They love it. So I'm telling you, when you've got that slow cooker on, she's going to be so. Well, you'll see anyway when you do it, but she'll love it. She'll love it even more than now.
I also would love to start like growing some stuff like herbs and stuff. I think it's something that I've wanted to do for like forever, but I just need, like, I'm waiting for that light bulb moment to just be like, just do it. Hopefully it happens.
Have you listened to the podcast?
Yeah, I listened to it.
Take some tips, get it done.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I still need to plant my garlic. But I've tried this thing with beetroot tops.
Nice.
Where you basically just put like a little bit of the top of a beetroot in a shallow dish of water and put it in the windowsill, and we have greens growing out of the top. So I'm going to put a video on about that soon as well. About how to kind of recycle waste to get more food for your dogs. So I think we'll work on that as well. No, that's great. So if anyone wants to follow along with yours and Nina's journey, where can they find you?
They can find us on Instagram and we are called @nina.oeb.
Yeah, so please do, if you're interested in Nina's journey, and you will be because she is the cutest little thing, head over to Instagram. I will put a link in the show notes as well, which will take you directly to a profile. So you can hit the follow button, and that will be great. Thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. It's been wonderful chatting, and I've loved hearing about your story. And my favourite thing has to be that you just love the bonding aspect of it, because no one's ever picked up on that before. And I just think it's great, because I think we overlook it, don't we? We dive into this world of canine nutrition because we just love our dogs so fiercely that we want them to live forever. And we forget that it's because of this love for them that we're here in the first place, and not enough people talk about it. So thank you for bringing that to light.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me and letting me share my story. And everyone should start a food journey with their dog, because your bond will just strengthen.
Yes, we're advocating for fresh food and strong bonds.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Thanks so much, Roisin.
Thank you.
Okay, speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another great episode of the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. Don't forget to check out the caption for any links discussed here today. And please, if you enjoyed the show, follow along and listen for free on your favourite podcast app. If you have any questions or would like to share your story, feel free to email me at mydogmademedoitnaturally@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Purpose of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted as advice from a veterinarian or other professional. It does not form a client relationship with me, the host, or any guest speakers, and any information is not intended to and does not diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. And my guests express our own views, thoughts, and opinions as individuals, and the podcast neither endorses or opposes the views, products, or services discussed here. If your pet is ill, always seek advice from your veterinarian. I am not a veterinarian and I do not treat disease or offer medical advice.